Advanced dive. Nigel, you will learn what an advanced dive is. Discover the factors that make advanced dives different from those of the open water diver course. What the ideal conditions for an advanced dive are. Learn what to do in the case of nitrogen narcosis. Understand how to assess contrasting readings of two dive computers and find out the exercises you have to do on the advanced dive on this course. Advanced dive. With the open water diver qualification, you are certified to dive to a depth of 18 meters, 60 feet. There are many fascinating examples of marine life within this depth. However, beyond this limit, there are even more interesting forms of life. With suitable preparation, you can reach these depths, but always remember that diving is a recreational activity. Depth is not an athletic event in which you have to beat records. PSS defines the advanced dive of the Advanced Open Water Diver course as a dive carried out between 25 and 30 meters, 80 to 100 feet. Instead, beyond that depth, but always within the maximum limit of 40 meters, 130 feet, divers with a lot of experience make deep dives. The increase in depth involves significant physical changes, such as the increase in air consumption, and physiological ones, such as the increase of the effects of narcosis of inert gases. The greater depth also involves greater psychological stress, caused by, among other things, the lack of natural light. This is why it is a good idea to take a light source with you to restore the colors to the underwater world. Light at depth. You already know that sunlight is made up of a union of several colored components: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. All these lights are, however, electromagnetic waves. The difference in their color is caused by their different frequencies. Water is denser than air, and the colors with less energy are easily absorbed by the molecules of liquid. Already at just a few meters below the surface, the red light disappears. As the light descends, the other colors disappear. First the orange and yellow, and then the others, leaving just the blue light. The rays of sunlight descend deeper without the color red, and everything begins to appear bluish. Imagine that the ray of light hits a Red Sea fan. This will appear red because it absorbs all the colors and just reflects the red light. But if the ray of light no longer has the red component, it will be completely absorbed by the sea fan, which will appear dark, almost black. To make it red again, you have to illuminate it with a light that has a red component in it. For example, that generated by a dive light. Deep down under the water, the colors have been absorbed entirely. The faint remaining light gives way to the darkness of the abyss. Planning the advanced dive. The advanced dive must be made from a boat. This will simplify the descent and ascent procedures. Diving with a diving center means you will also benefit from better surface assistance. Always check that the essential equipment is available: spares kit, tools, and a first aid kit. This kit should also include an oxygen supply provided by the instructor or diving center. The dive plan must also include procedures for dealing with emergencies. To establish the limits, you should use the most restrictive parameters, considering your own and those of your buddy. If you dive with a computer, it is necessary to establish the maximum depth limit, but never deeper than 30 meters, 100 feet, and the minimum remaining time in respect to the maximum no-stop time, at least 2 to 3 minutes. For safety reasons, it is advisable to have a spare depth gauge or a surface buoyant line like you used on the PSS open water diver course. If you have a problem of a malfunctioning computer, you should ascend to 5 meters, 15 feet, and stay there for 5 minutes or longer. Nitrogen narcosis. One of the most feared aspects of a deep dive is nitrogen narcosis. The effects are a sense of dimming of the mental state, similar to drinking too much alcohol, which can lead to irrational behavior. The mechanism with which narcosis develops is still not entirely understood. A widespread assumption is that it is caused by the absorption of nitrogen in the myelinic sheath of the neurons, causing localized pressure that interferes with the transmission of the nerve signals. Many believe that narcosis only occurs deeper than 30 meters, 100 feet. In reality, scientific studies have shown that it occurs to a greater or lesser extent in just a few meters, feet of water. On average, at 30 meters, 100 feet, the capacity to reason decreases by 33%, reaction times increase by 21%, and manual dexterity is reduced by 8%. In parallel to these effects, a sense of euphoria develops, similar to that caused by alcohol. To resolve the problems of narcosis, it is enough to just ascend a few meters, feet. The effects will disappear. Narcosis caused by inert gas is felt more when there are high levels of carbon dioxide or alcohol in the blood, when medication is being taken, or there is psychological stress. When there is a high stress level, the effects of narcosis may increase the stress even further, giving rise to panic, a diver's worst enemy. The best way of preventing narcosis is to breathe correctly. Don't tire yourself, don't dive too deep, and always stay calm. One of the essential rules of a deep dive is to breathe more slowly and deeply than normal. You have to breathe more deeply due to the second stage of the regulator, which increases the volume of the dead air spaces where the air breathed out of the lungs collects. The deeper you are, the more slowly you should breathe. In fact, as the depth increases, the density of the air that flows in the hose and in the second stage increases, creating greater effort to breathe. Maximum dive time. The maximum no-stop dive time reduces rapidly as the depth increases. On the PSS tables, for example, for a first dive at 30 meters, 100 feet, you have just 20 minutes to descend, make a brief underwater excursion, and ascend to the depth of the safety stop. The tables are created by simulating the absorption of inert gas in the body, using several mathematical compartments with different speeds. The fast ones accept greater maximum levels of supersaturation, the so-called M value. Making a shallow dive, as you did on the open water diver course, the fast components are not the determining ones, because the level of supersaturation reached is always less than the permitted maximum value. It is the slow compartments, which have a lower M value, that control the shallow dives. This means that it is a slow compartment that obliges us to terminate a shallow dive, because its M value will be reached as we ascend. At greater depths, the fast compartments can also reach a level of supersaturation greater than the maximum permitted level. A fast compartment, by its very definition, quickly reaches its limit, causing us to make shorter dives than we would if we dived in shallow water. It is possible to use a dive computer to extend the dive time. On ascent, the computer allows you to stop at a depth at which the fast compartment begins to give up nitrogen, so it no longer controls the dive, while the slow compartments have yet to reach their limit. Contrary to the tables, the computer allows you to stay underwater, even if it is at a shallower depth, making what is known as a multi-level dive. Equipment for an advanced dive. The equipment needed for an advanced dive is the same as you have already used, with a few extra precautions. Descending to 30 meters, 100 feet, you may pass through the thermocline, so the suit you wear must be adequate for the temperature on the bottom, not that on the surface. To make the calculation of air consumption easier, it is best to use an underwater dive slate with a soft lead pencil and a razor. Obviously, you must have a timer and a depth gauge, or better still, a dive computer, which enables you to make multi-level dives. Some models of computers and depth gauges are calibrated for fresh water, others for salt water. The result is that the depth readings can differ slightly. However, this fact does not influence the accuracy of the dive calculations. As a precaution, both buddies should follow the readings of the most restrictive computer. Other items required are a compass and a dive light, which enables you to combat the selective absorption of the colors and see the underwater world in all its splendor. Making the dive. An essential requirement for reducing the risks of an advanced dive is being prepared to say no and postpone the dive, even if it's just because you are not feeling particularly fit or well. To be in the best condition for diving, you should be well rested and correctly nourished. This means that sugars should be eaten before and not after the dive. You must also take care that you are not dehydrated by drinking water or fruit juice. You must also avoid taking medication or drugs or smoking some hours before the dive. Before getting ready, make sure that the emergency communication systems work. If you have planned to use cell phones, check that you have the personal access codes and the list of numbers to call. The best way of making an advanced dive is undoubtedly from a boat with the support of a diving center. In this case, follow the instructions given to you by the instructor or crew. Before putting on your suit, assemble and check your equipment and wait for the dive briefing. As soon as you put on your aqualung, make a buddy check and prepare to enter the water. If there is a current, a floating line attached to a buoy will be lowered into the water. As soon as you enter the water, move immediately to this line or to that of the anchor. When you begin the ascent, check your buoyancy without letting go of the line, but at the same time not holding it too tightly. Ideally, you should make a ring with your thumb and index finger of your right hand and let the line run smoothly inside it. This means that your left hand is free to compensate and use your BC. When you arrive at your planned depth, read the pressure shown on your pressure gauge, and at the moment your timer or computer changes from 1 minute to the next, make a note of the two readings, time and pressure, on your dive slate. You will need this later to calculate your remaining autonomy. You can now make a brief excursion underwater, taking care to remain at a constant depth. On your return, take a reading of the pressure gauge again at the moment your timer or computer changes from 1 minute to the next, and also write this information on the dive slate. you can now work out your air consumption and remaining autonomy in minutes. Don't be surprised if even these simple calculations seem difficult. It is the effect of nitrogen narcosis. When it is time to return to the surface, use the line to ascend and ensure that the ascent rate is not faster than 10 meters, 33 feet a minute. Remember to ascend even more slowly from the depth of the safety spot. Happy diving!